Welcome to the Aired Out Podcast, few after 9:05 to be exact. Was thinking briefly about riding the motorcycle in this morning, and then I was, it's just, I don't know. I was having some second guesses on that this morning. A little chilly. I think it was like 38 at my house. It's got to be in the 40s before I get on the bike. I'm getting older. Deb Phillips with us this morning from the world. Deb, good morning.
Good morning, JD.
How the heck are you? Top of the morning to you.
Good. Little cooler today than yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a big difference, and maybe even some thunderstorms pushing back in this afternoon. But Deb, good morning. What can we expect from the world, which comes out today, of course?
Well, we have the advertiser of the week, the business of the week, and this week it is Montpelier Agway. And with planting season getting started, that's a great place to go visit. Also, Mother's Day is May 11th, and we have a lot of local advertisers with unique gifts for your mom. Plus, Green Up is this weekend and Mayfest in Montpelier. And then we don't want you to miss the grocery specials at Pumpkin Pantry in Williamstown and Granite City Market in downtown Barrie.
I love it. If someone wants to advertise with the world, what do they do? How complicated is it?
Not complicated at all. Just give us a call and we'll be there.
Awesome. And so I want to ask you, because I'm still getting asked so much about this. When can folks start expecting the world in their mailboxes?
Well, right now it's in the households in 05602. We are hoping in the next month to have it in 05641.
Got it.
So that, yeah, we're just still working on that. And hope to have that soon.
Wonderful. Looking forward to flipping through the pages today. I know Chris will be by here at some point soon with my world paper, and I always look forward to it, Deb. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JD. Have a good day.
You got it. We'll be in touch. New week, a new world. Be on the lookout for it today. Partly cloudy is the word today. Starting out just beautiful this morning. Sun is shining. We're looking at 55 degrees later today. That's a big change up from yesterday. Tonight, partly cloudy at around 32. I know, still. Listen, I hope that my grass seed's going to grow with temperatures like this. Tomorrow, sun and clouds and 67. Friday, rebounding just a little bit. Thunderstorms, still some clouds, some sun, and around 70 degrees. And then the weekend, clouds, sun, rain, and a little cooler, either side of 60 for both Saturday and Sunday. Want to thank you so much for tuning in, for joining us this morning. We have a lot to unpack, a lot to get to. As you may have seen in the press release that we had just put out, we have partnered up with Sweethearts and Heroes, and this was kind of something that has been in the making here for maybe a couple of weeks is my guess. But I was, Tom Murphy is with us with Loudon this morning, Loudon Granger from Sweethearts and Heroes. And Tom, it was really simple. I mean, listen, you and I both are creatures that really shift into gear with our brain capacity while we're driving. And that's what happened to me. I'm driving down the road and I'm like, why are these guys not on the air with me once a week? It's got to happen.
Is that a question?
Well, no, that's a comment.
Well, hold on. First of all, slow down there, Speedy.
Hey, I've only had a half a cup.
I know, but what's this motorcycle stuff?
I got a motorcycle.
Dude, that's dangerous.
What?
He's a Harley driver. Loudon's a Harley driver.
Triumph.
No
disrespect to the
I haven't
Harleys.
ridden a motorcycle in a while.
Yeah, because I talked him out of it. I said it's dangerous.
Really? You're on that camp.
Yeah.
Are you going to try to get me to unmotorcycle?
I'm going to
myself?
try. Well, because you know that beautiful daughter of yours?
Oh, see, here we go. See, he's going for the jugular already.
Right
See,
out.
Just right there. Yeah. He could have built up to it.
No.
Yeah.
No. I go right for the daughter and the wife. And
Well, here's the scary thing. Serious now. When I hit the midlife crisis, which Loudon doesn't know about yet because he's so young. But when I hit the midlife crisis, I was late 30s, early 40s, maybe mid 40s now that I'm thinking about it. I was like, got to get a motorcycle. And it started out with the dirt bike, and then it went to the road bike. And there is just something about that's, can I say the S word, speed? There's something about it, man. Tom, listen, you're a man of adrenaline. You understand. You've got to. Have you ever been on a motorcycle?
oh
Yes,
yeah,
yes or no?
yeah. When I was a
On the
young
back or
person,
riding?
I've driven a motorcycle.
Okay. What did you
but,
have?
I didn't have one.
All right.
Yeah, I couldn't afford that, JD.
Yeah. Right.
I don't have the big bucks like you.
Right.
But, no, it's just, it's not the motorcycle. It's the other people out there that I worry about.
Are you going to back me up here, Loudon?
He's tried for years.
Yeah. No, I'm a fan of motorcycling. I went out to the dentist when I turned 18. I went to the dentist and I came back with my first motorcycle, and I just found something on Craigslist and picked it up.
Yeah.
Rode it home, and I fell in love with it for sure.
Yeah.
So I went for the speed at first, but the speed's scary after a while,
Yeah,
man.
it is.
The speed gets scary, like woo.
Well, there's that one moment where you're coming into it and you're
Yeah.
not sure if I can get out of this.
Yeah.
And usually we all need that.
Yeah.
We all need that.
Yeah.
And then usually that does the trick.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on.
Yeah,
with
let's
this
move on.
motorcycle stuff. Yeah.
Listen,
We'll get you out of it. We'll get
all
you
right,
out
you're
of
going
it.
to work on it.
Yeah.
Buddy, I'm so glad to see you, and I'm so glad to meet Loudon. I've heard so much about this guy. I've heard so much about Leon, who I haven't yet met, and I'm meeting your daughter today, Abby, for the first time. I am so blessed and honored to be included in your family.
Yeah.
You guys have created an empire.
Empire. Well, it's been an interesting journey. When you talk about scale, we estimate we've probably been in front of about 2 million students, parents, teachers, educators, administrators, community members. It's been a 16-year ride.
I was going to say 16. I was going to ask you how many years it's
Yeah.
been. That's not that long when you're talking about numbers like that.
Yeah.
You guys are not sitting around doing, one event a week.
No. Usually it's every single day. I think one year we topped out at 120 schools in the school year. And that's not to mention the summer work that we do, but it's been a roller coaster, let me tell you.
What was and I know that I've had you and Rick on before. By the way, my daughter, Lily, said to me this morning, I said to her, you know who I've got on the air this morning, right? And she's like, oh, yeah. And I said, who? And she said, Rick.
Oh, gosh.
And I said,
man.
and I said, and Tom? And she's like, who's Tom?
Oh.
And I said, the free hugs guy. Oh, yes. Oh, that guy. He was the wrestler, right? Anyway.
I hope Rick isn't
Props.
listening.
Yeah.
I hope I was just looking at my phone. Don't think I was addicted, but I am like everyone. And I was trying to make sure this gets streamed to our platform as well, because I think some of the stuff we're going to talk about here today is really, really important.
Yeah.
But just going back to the whole Rick thing, it's an inside joke with Rick and I.
Yeah.
It's more of a competition because when I can say it before him,
Yes.
after assemblies at the elementary level, we say, who's better? Was I better than Rick?
Yeah.
And 99.9% of kids, no, Rick. But the interesting thing is this.
Wow.
when they first meet Rick at the elementary level, they're scared of him. And after he does his bit and they hear his voice, and I think his favorite compliment over the years, and man, we've heard everything. We were at school yesterday. The principal came out and she's like, yeah, we had to reprimand one little kindergartner because it's something they said to Rick, but we've heard everything. Here's a guy, 60% of his body was burned away, no ears, no nose, one leg, hands are melted together. And you're a kindergartner.
Sure.
What do you say?
Yeah, right.
And the first time it happened, we were outside. This little kid walks up to him and he goes, "You look like Freddy Krueger." And Rick looks at me and he goes, "How do you know who Freddy Krueger is, kid?"
Right.
yeah, right. Yeah.
But they say the darndest thing, and the greatest compliment he ever got. It warms your heart. A little kid looked at him after the assembly and he goes, "You're just a man."
Ooh.
And Rick says that was the best compliment he ever got
Wow.
because he looks like the monster that's supposed to live under your bed.
By the way, Rick is tuned in this morning. He has already
Oh,
commented.
no.
He says, if this is an empire, is Tom Darth Vader or Jar Jar?
Well, now let me tell you something. Since he's listening, I got to get this. Oh man, I've
There's
so
a
many.
there's a team Rick here. I'm saying.
I think you should block him.
Should I block him? Right, ban him?
You ban him. But I got to tell you this. I wish we could do something. I throw some B-roll in here. So his wife Amy is, an amazing human being. They met after his injury.
Yeah, I
which
remember
that story,
we
did talk about that.
You shared this story on there. It's unbelievable.
But I'm going to tell you a better one. So anyway, his wife Amy, I think she likes me better than Rick.
Probably.
But she likes to push Rick's buttons.
Yeah.
Anyway, so everybody as a grandparent, there's a couple ways you get your grandparent name, right? You can just go with the standard and just I'm going to be grandpa or grandma.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a Rick's. He had a Jaji, and it's Polish, I believe, and so sometimes you go with the cultural grandparent name. But the greatest names are when the kid names you.
Yes.
Right? Like when the kid names you. And that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, so I'll be preparing for my name. And all my buddies that have kids, now that my kids are older, when they introduce me, I actually slip one by the goalie. And I've named myself King Tom.
King Tom.
King Tom. So, and listen, there's no narcissism when it's a kindergartner or a first grader, okay? If you do it with adults, that's a problem.
Sure.
But anyway, so Rick got Grace when she was 10 days old, 11 days old. Unbelievable story. And Grace is 5 today, and it's probably, outside of Amy, it's probably the greatest joy of his life. It is unbelievable. I got goosebumps just thinking about the stories over the last 5 years. But she only knows me as
King Tom.
King Tom.
Really?
So it's not really an emperor. It's more of a King Tom.
I understand.
Yeah.
Man, please introduce this guy next to you.
Yeah.
I want to hear from Loudon, and I want to know how we got the name Loudon.
Yeah.
Geez. Well, I'll introduce him.
Is that from Loudon Speedway?
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Racing family?
NASCAR family. Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Are we joking here?
No, seriously. Seriously.
Really?
He's a left-hand turn guy.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Just hang out in the left-hand turn.
Left-handed turns. Yeah.
He's left-handed too.
You were born this way.
I was.
Okay.
Yeah. My parents were huge NASCAR race fans, and I went to 2 ever since I was born. I was actually in the New Hampshire International Speedway. They're kind of like track newspaper.
Yeah.
With my name and everything kind of being and two races a year basically for like my whole life, going over there at least, and then we'd go to obviously like Charlotte, we'd go to Daytona and stuff, and
So you're there in September, every September.
July, September.
I know this is a family show, but you should probably do the math.
Yeah.
No,
well,
it doesn't
I'm
add
wondering.
up.
Oh,
It doesn't add up.
up.
No, we've done the math my whole life because
Doesn't add
everyone
up.
goes there for. I was born on Christmas, so there's no race in February. So that's kind of I know. That's why
Debunked it.
I'm down to kind of share a little bit more.
So you're going through some withdrawal during the winter.
Yeah.
So you're still obviously very much still a huge.
No, I don't watch much NASCAR anymore. I don't actually as much anymore. But
Right.
we want to go see a NASCAR race. Abby's never been to a NASCAR race, so we'd love to go there. And plus, we have Sweethearts and Heroes was on a NASCAR team for a while.
Yeah,
or not
yeah,
NASCAR,
yeah.
but
Local.
Thunder Road. They raced here.
Thunder Road.
Yeah.
I got one of the hoods in my gym. Yeah, from a crash.
Really?
The guy gave me the hood. Yeah.
Did you
No
guys
kidding.
go to that race?
Can we get off the motorsports
Yes.
stuff?
Let's
That's
dive-
boring. God.
Let's dive into
You did one.
Rick is saying that's extra narcissism.
I could see this. We got to have this
Listen.
really weird.
Here's the thing, though. We're having fun, though.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about you guys when I woke up this morning, and I'm like, this is a team of guys who are literally, and I kind of said this to you, alluded to this a little bit last time I had you on there, that is literally attempting to chip away at changing the world for the better. And you're going for the youth, which is the growth. And man, and I also said this last time, and I'll say it again. I am going to sound many times on the air on Wednesdays like an old man, because I'm going to talk about the old days of when I was a kid and how different the world was, different how school was, different how the teachers were. It was just so much simpler. At least it seemed that way. Yeah. You look at the headlines in the
Yeah.
turn your phone on in the morning. It's just cram-packed with bad news and just stuff. And the kids are carrying this to school. They're walking around with the weight of the world, let alone just, maybe what's going on in their families and the dynamics in their families. They're carrying a lot of weight, man. You know what I was carrying around when I was in 3rd, 4th grade? What I was going to do afterwards. I was going to be riding my bicycle around the neighborhood with who? Climbing trees, digging holes, playing with my G.I. Joe. That's all I was worried about, you know? And now it's like, man, it's like kids are worried about, how if they're going to get food and, who's bullying them on social media. And damn, it's a heavy, heavy time.
Yeah.
And you guys are, and I said this when Rick was here, I envision you guys on a river paddling upstream, but you're hitting some jetties and making some real progress. It's really impressive.
It's interesting actually, because like where I'm coming from, I was born in 1995, so I had like a touch of what you just were kind of talking about. We're kind of growing up playing. I mean, I'm only a child, so and I lived. My closest neighbor's a mile away, essentially, my closest friend. So we'd play a little bit, but I was also kind of into the social media realm too, like Facebook and stuff like that. MySpace, Facebook, AOL, Instant Messenger. I was 5th grade kind of doing that. So I was also kind of had one foot in that realm too. But so when you're sharing kind of your youth, part of me is curious about that. But I've noticed even more kids nowadays, no more students that we talk to, when I'm interviewing them, talking to them, they are extremely curious to find out what that was like, because that's 100% foreign to them.
Foreign.
Whereas with me, I kind of have a touch of it. I can kind of recall a little bit, but it's just interesting. So they really do want to know. And we had an opportunity last September where we did the summit and we removed all Instagram or all cell phones from them, and they really had a great time with that. They loved that because that was like a mandatory. If you want to participate in this, you're going to leave that baggage at the door, because it is baggage, like you're saying. They're lugging it around and stuff, and they're so curious about who's liking their stuff, who's seen their stories, who's seen. It's a currency, and it's heavy on them for sure, because that's their worth in their hallways, and they were extremely stoked to just not have to almost kind of keep up with the Joneses in the cyber world for that event we did. And it was actually kind of neat to see.
Yeah, but we'll talk. Number one, let me take one little step back, and I have so many comments on what Loudon just said, and it's a deep dive, and we could spend hours and days talking about this stuff. But number one, JD, thanks for letting us be here.
Yeah.
I know that we put some stuff out kind of like in a press release, but the goal is to bring Sweethearts and Heroes on every Wednesday. A member of our team, I hope eventually a principal or two, maybe even a parent can get on. And just as importantly, and I think you need to know this because you're here in Vermont, we have a group of dealers, Chevy dealers from northern New York right through New Hampshire. And man, I could not be more proud of this group of dealers. You know, it's easy to talk about what needs to change in this world, you know, the challenges that are going on in this world. It's really easy for everyone to grab their phone, to be this keyboard warrior and talk about these issues. But these dealers, every year for the last 6 or 7 years, have put a tremendous amount of resources, in particular money, into getting us into these schools because they've seen the impact that this work has had. Now, we've gone from Houston to Hawaii to Montreal, and I don't think there's been another group that has done what these dealers have done. So I'm going to really push you to make sure, because this is your home state. And these dealers are doing, there's only about 86,000 students in the state of Vermont. We can get to every single one of them because of these dealers. And it's just a beautiful thing. I was in a school yesterday that was sponsored by Benson. And, man, I just had a couple moments in circle with these kids. And I'll kind of land on this because I'm sure you got a ton of thoughts. And I do want to go back to kind of the beginning here, not really the origin of Sweethearts and Heroes, but I think that when we do these, the people that are going to listen and that are going to ask other people to listen, it's because they're going to get some value. I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. I could sit here for hours and tell stories because I got thousands of them. But I think the goal here is to, and correct me if you want to steer it differently because this is your show, not mine, King Tom. But no, seriously, man, I really want to give any listeners today or anyone that wants to listen to this later some real value that's going to help them, especially as a parent in this brave new world, as Huxley would have called it, that we're involved in here, because we can hit every student in the state of Vermont and we can help them because it's never been harder to be a young person than in the world today. Never been harder. There's nobody listening that would say, oh man, I wish I could be a kid today. Like, not me. And just kind of wrap up what Loudon was saying, you know, I do this crazy circle stuff and 7 or 8 years now, and it's all I ever want to talk about is being in circle with young people. And I can't count the number of young people. I got some famous questions, and one of my famous ones is, where would you go if you had a time machine? I can't count the number of young people that say to me, I'd like to go back before social media. And I'm going to tell you what, there's an awakening happening right now. And most people aren't seeing it, but I'm in school every single day with young people. And I see them waking up. I see some of them putting the phones down. And, you know, it's very hard to describe what's happening, but they're figuring it out. As destructive as it is and the challenges that it's causing, I see it with my own eyes. And you watch, you play this back in 5 years, and you're going to have a new breed of human being that's waking up to this.
Look at the schools that you guys have been to just recently here in Central Vermont. Brookside Elementary, Lakeview Elementary, Woodbury Elementary, Newberry, Ludlow, Washington Village School, Orange Center School, Waits River. These are just off the top of my head. And that's just right here in our immediate Central Vermont area. I mean, you guys are just, you're doing it, man.
Yeah. And no offense, the greatest schools in America. And what I mean by that is we go to Long Island. We've been to, down to Houston.
Yeah.
And huge, huge schools. But, man, I just fall in love with these little K-12 schools.
Yeah, right.
That, I don't know. And I don't want to sound old or nostalgic, but that's just the way education should be.
Yes.
It should be a community.
You have a team that is so powerful that's behind you, and I think you would say that if you didn't, this wouldn't have nearly the traction and impact that it's had without people like Loudon sitting next to you. How did you guys meet? How did you get him involved with this?
Well, how did we meet? This
Maybe that's a whole different
no.
podcast
Well, it
episode.
is,
Yeah.
but I don't want to call him
Say it.
chubby.
You can say it.
Okay, I don't want to hurt his feelings. But he was a 16-year-old kid that wandered into
16.
Yeah. How old are you today?
I forget. No, 29.
29.
I do forget that though.
Are you seriously?
Yeah. I had the restaurant, and in St. Albans, and he wandered in, was looking for a dishwashing job, and so he started washing dishes for us, and I didn't see much. I just saw someone that could fill a hole, and he filled it and didn't complain too much, and never complained. Always had a good attitude.
No, you can't complain when you have free food coming back.
Wow, come on.
You know, like
Sure.
get some extra pizza.
He's talking about eating off the plates as he's washing the food that comes back in.
Oh, hell yes.
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I would do.
And he described me as chubby, so it was right where it needed to be.
He and I would be fighting for the scraps.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so just accelerate. He went to Plattsburgh State, got a 2 degrees, right?
Yeah.
And so that meant he was a little bit smart, so probably should keep him around. And so he'd come back every summer, like a dog trying to get some food. And so he worked for us for every summer, and he did a bunch of stuff from waitering to bartending. And eventually COVID hit. And actually before that, I came up with an idea. I said, hey, I got a great idea. I said, I got this new this space that's attached to the restaurant, probably 2,000 square feet. I said, hey, I got this idea. I was reading this book by Malcolm Gladwell. And I said, I think we should open a speakeasy. And so I pretty much just had the initial idea, but then handed it to Loudon. And he built the entire thing. And if you go to St. Albans today, it's called the Clothier.
Seriously.
Yeah, it is outrageous. Because Twigs was a men and boys clothing store 100 years ago, and that's the restaurant, Twigs.
Yeah.
And so we attached this speakeasy. You go into a changing room. There's a candlestick. It moves. It is unbelievable what he did inside.
Yeah, it was sick.
But from the drink menu, and then COVID hit, and it crashed the whole thing.
Which is ironic, though, because in the 1920s, the government banned going to bars, no alcohol, prohibition.
Yeah.
The 2020s, the government banned people going to bars because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So there was this echo throughout the century, and it was actually pretty perfect, to be honest with you. It really was a speakeasy. You had to sneak in and get in there, and
Wow.
yeah. So the spirit of what it stood for was there the whole time.
Don't ask if we kept it open during COVID.
No,
Don't
I,
ask.
I'm not going to ask.
No, we didn't.
I
We
wasn't even thinking of that question.
No, we didn't. But the coolest thing was, and this is 25 episodes here, we made an unbelievable video. Well, this kid was in town, filmmaker was in town when COVID hit. And he said, hey, do you mind if I run my camera? And he did this really cool documentary I'll send to you called The Boll Weevil, Boll. It was an agricultural pest that decimated Enterprise, Alabama in 1915 and just destroyed the cotton crop. And then they started planting peanuts after that. And Enterprise became one of the greatest producers of peanuts in the world. And but no one could see it when the boll weevil wiped out the cotton crop and decimated their community. And so we took that theme when COVID hit the restaurant and we shut down. And we just said, we stole this from Rick Yarish because Rick, getting blown up, said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. And I'm going to tie Loudon back into this. And so when the Vermont Health Department called me and said, shut it down, I walked into the restaurant that day and I kicked the kitchen doors open. I said, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to this restaurant. And hands down, the best thing that ever happened, I got to be careful when I say this, was COVID. And what I mean by that is the way that we gave to the community, only because I thought we were going to go out of business, so I had to give all this stuff away. But the way the community responded, man, Twigs just flew off the charts after the pandemic had subsided, and the community gave back to us. But Loudon was probably, out of two people, he probably was the most instrumental person in the restaurant, because he took over the kitchen. That was just, we had tickets that would come out every night, 7 days a week, and spiral like a snake on the floor because of all the, to-go orders and the takeout, which we had never done before. So we had no idea how to handle this kind of stuff. You couldn't even keep up. And but Loudon and one other person just orchestrated it, because the clothier shut down. And I said, well, we can get rid of him or keep him. And so he just took over the kitchen, and it was just a masterpiece. I don't think he knew what he was doing, but he's left-handed, so he figured it out, I guess.
So, Loudon, how did you get involved with Sweethearts and Heroes, though?
So I was always kind of interested in filming different sports, snowboarding, skateboarding stuff growing up. Always had my hands on like a camcorder of some sort, photography. And I had known Tom through the restaurant, and I think he invited me to come check out a presentation. I remember watching some presentation maybe in Middleburg or something, New York or something, and kind of getting my hands to the camera. And then in Essex, I filmed a few, and then I think that's how I kind of started going in there. Maybe a couple animation graphics, just kind of cutting my teeth on that a little bit, and then really kind of went all in with helping with the coursework, probably the last year or two, I'd say, and just filming it and going. And that's kind of, I think.
And
yeah,
you speak at schools, too?
No, I do not speak at schools.
Okay.
Yet.
Not yet.
Yet.
Well-spoken guy, though. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
look
Yeah.
insightful. I mean,
Well, a little
are we
plug
doing
here.
here?
He just started a little podcast for us.
thank you.
Just about a 15-minute thing called Love Your Lawn,
Okay.
LAWN. It's an acronym, but he just does a 15-minute little, here's the universe of Sweethearts and Heroes. He just started it. It's very clever, very creative. And I think that's why I kind of really asked him, between the clothier, I saw what he did in the changing a lot of the procedures in the restaurant, just innovating things, looking at it from a different lens. And so when, he could get behind the lens of a camera, I knew he was going to shoot it from a different angle and just take a different perspective, a millennial perspective, a Gen X perspective. And something like we put a bunch of old people behind the mics and behind the cameras, but young people want to see it differently.
Sure.
And they want to see it through those eyes and
Sure.
not these eyes.
Yeah. Where do we find Love Your Lawn? Where is it?
Love Your Lawn is on YouTube primarily, but we also are on Spotify as well.
Okay.
We drop one a week, basically. Just kind of, like you said, encompassing everything that's happened in the Sweethearts and Heroes universe. It's a Sweethearts and Heroes, a lot of comic book theme.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like the hub, the news desk, essentially, of what's going on. And we even try to give some tips for different people who are trying to conduct some of our work in the field.
Yeah.
Essentially, just kind of give them little doses throughout the week. And then another thing is, not to dwell on the negativity from the news that it just kind of, that's what sells. That's kind of what's been promoted. We try to take the stance of, and we do take the stance of, we're giving the positive side of stuff. We're trying to plant a seed of maybe light in your week, something that'll kind of help you throughout the week. And there's so many things that tie in with the lawn and community and everything that we sense needs to happen. We're just trying to start somewhere with this as well. Just another avenue for people can tune into it.
So how long have you been connected with Sweethearts and Heroes?
I would say probably maybe 4 years.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
would say.
How has this changed your life?
Oh, this has changed my life. Well, so many ways, actually. And it didn't start when I started Sweethearts and Heroes. It started when we were in the restaurant and kind of in that time of COVID that he had highlighted. Because around that time, even a little bit before then, what were you kind of like implementing or kind of beta testing kind of some of like the circle work? How would you kind of describe that in the restaurant?
That's interesting. You bring that up. I woke up one day, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, and I used to do mandatory staff meetings, Tom, and we had upwards of 70 employees when we finished our tenure at the restaurant in 2022. So it went from about 15 to about 70 or 80 people. And I would have these mandatory staff meetings. And I wasn't, but wasn't the real King Tom. But anyway, but it's just important. You got to get your team together. They were positive, but it was me getting up there and, running my mouth like I'm good at. And, it was good stuff. But one day I woke up and I got involved in Circle about 7 or 8 years ago, which is a whole different discussion, and just changed my life. I mean, absolutely every part of my life. My kids, my wife would say, I don't really know that guy today, and 100% of it's because of Circle.
Circle is in ancient. Help me out here.
Yeah, it's just everybody listening. Your ancestors sat in Circle for thousands and thousands of years.
Cavemen, maybe.
We can trace Circle back to almost 400,000 years.
Okay.
People just sit in a circle and they commune.
Yeah.
And the oxytocin flows.
Right. We can all see each other.
Yeah.
Total transparency
Yeah.
and hear each other.
And hear each other.
Great
That's the
point.
most important thing.
Great point.
It really, sight is the number one, it's the number one sense for human beings. But when you look at logic and reason, it's built through the ear gate. And that's something we struggle with today because we don't listen to each other. And Circle's about listening. And I can go very nerdy and deep on the science of empathy. I talk a lot about it in professional development. But the foundational root of empathy, and the only reason we're here as a species is because of empathy. We've learned to share resources with one another, right? We help people when they're in distress so that when we're in distress, people help us. That's empathy, right? The foundational root, and there's a ton of science around this, is perspective taking. It's listening to someone else's perspective. That's the foundational roots of empathy. And that's what you do in Circle. You just listen to people. And you listen to different generations. And you get to commune with one another.
And you bring this to the schools.
Oh, yeah. It's the most important work that we do. Most important work.
Everyone can see each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Love Circle. Love Circle. I did Circle. As a matter of fact, I did Circle yesterday, and I got sometimes kids, I have talking pieces. You've seen my little box before and something else that we did, but I didn't really plan on bringing this. I keep one on my wallet I got from a young lady, but I got this from a young man yesterday, and after the Circle, 3rd grader gave this to me.
Super Bowl.
In Super Bowl. And his uncle was murdered, stabbed to death. Real important person in his life, and he got to share that in the Circle yesterday. Not because I asked him to, but that was what was on his heart, and it was so funny because I took a little picture with him because I keep pictures with kids, and I just dropped my ball. I'll get it. But maybe that was the universe saying, "Don't say anymore, Tom.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go."
But that's for me, and I
Sure,
don't share his picture. But it was the cutest thing, and it was really special because after the Circle, all the other kids left the room, and he hung out with me, and he talked about his uncle and what happened, and he told me a little bit more, and it was like a movie, man. He gets to the door and he leaves. All the other kids were on the playground, so he didn't have a little playground time because he wanted to talk to me after the Circle, but he gets that door and he looks back over his shoulder. He goes, "I think you should come back here again." I said, "Well, we'll see, buddy." But that was a really special moment for me, so I'll keep that in my Circle box, and it'll mean a lot to me over the years, and at the right moment, some other kid will pick that up, and he'll say, "Let's use this for the talking piece," and the universe someone else in that Circle will need to hear that story, and I could blow your mind right now with things that have been pulled out of that box, and I had one a couple weeks ago that I still can't process it. I can't process it. How the universe knew that one Circle that teacher was in that needed to hear what that kid happened to pick out of that box.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll be the first to say, understand the importance of curriculum and there's a reason why we go to school. It is to learn the things that we need to learn in life and have those tools. And when I was in elementary school, it was just, you sat down, you listened, you learned, or you tried to learn, you did your work, you had recess for like an hour plus, no matter what the weather was doing. And then you went back in the classroom and you learned some more. And yeah, there was a few of us that goofed off, but sometimes me. But the purpose of going to school was to learn. You guys are bringing something into the school that is not necessarily the math, the science, the social studies, and the English, but it's the other stuff that we need to learn. Respect, empathy, compassion. Bullying is something that is so huge now, and yeah, of course, there was a little bit of bullying when I was in school, and it just seemed like things got settled kind of organically, but now bullying has gone to a next level. Parents aren't parenting; they're not keeping their kids in check and holding them accountable for their behavior. A lot of parents are not. A lot are. But you guys are parenting almost. You're teaching kids. Look at the residual effects of your behavior toward other students. Look at what can happen. Look at what accumulates in another student's soul if you're continually, even if you think it's harmless, badgering them or picking on them. And do the right thing. Think and rethink about what might come out of your mouth before it comes out of your mouth. And that words can be really powerful and can hurt, but can also be so good and give birth to a whole new feeling. And you can turn this around. You don't, just because you're bullying or whatever it is that you're doing doesn't mean that you have to do that every day. And not only hold yourself accountable, but hold your other fellow students accountable. Watch what other kids are doing and don't look away from it. Don't ignore it. Get involved with it and say, hey, in your indirect kind of way, you can be better. We can be better. And man, it's like a testimony here. Within a week after you guys were at my daughter's school, she did what you guys have taught her on the playground and came home and told me. And I think I texted you right away.
You did.
I mean,
Man, there's so
huge,
much in
huge
what
stuff,
you're
man.
saying. I don't want to dominate this conversation, but I do thank you for bringing up the B word because when I talk about the origin story of Sweethearts and Heroes, that's where it begins. And I'm not going to rehash the actual origin of it, but Rick and I were known as the bully guys, and that's the horse that we ride in on, is this bullying. And I think it's very important for your listeners, and this is kind of the nugget of wisdom, if you will, the learning portion, because I have a lot of parents that have come up to me over the years, thousands in my personal life, and said, my daughter's getting bullied. And I'm like, oh, tell me the story. And, well, she's in kindergarten. And I'm like, yeah, and I listen, and, I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
Sure.
But I like to say the mean switch gets turned on in about the 5th grade.
Yeah.
That's when it happens. But before that, maybe there's something. Maybe there's some bullying behavior, not bullying.
Yeah.
But, mommy hits daddy. Daddy calls mommy stupid. And kids come to school, they call people stupid, and they hit each other. And maybe they're just replicating behavior that they've seen. But I think it's very important right now that I just give you a little understanding, because any parent that's struggling with bullying, because words are powerful, man. They cut like a two-edged sword. They heal, they help, but they're very destructive. Anyone that says sticks and stones don't break my bones, that's not true. I got a poem that I wrote years ago. Names and words could cause me to kill myself. That's one of the lines in the poem. 2 kids last night. I was going to bed at 10 o'clock. I get a Google alert. 2 kids in Virginia, 2 different articles. 17-year-old and a 10-year-old ended their own lives. 2 in Virginia. And, middle school suicides in middle schoolers since 2007 have tripled. 30% of young women post-pandemic have considered ending their own lives in this country. And that's not a bullying discussion, right? That's a hopelessness discussion. That's a separate one. But what I want to do...
That's the big umbrella, isn't it?
That's the big umbrella. And that's
that encompasses mental health and everything else.
That's another day. But I do want to give your listeners a little knowledge, right, on bullying, because when parents come to me, the first thing, or an administrator, a teacher, at every level from kindergarten to 12th grade, when we leave, everyone knows what bullying is. Because the first thing I teach young people in a very animated, fun, sticky way is what bullying is. Right? Here's the definition. It's a blustering, quarrelsome, overbearing person who habitually, intentionally badgers smaller, weaker people.
You got to say that slower one more time for us.
And I do that on purpose. But bullying is made up of 4 things. So if a parent comes to me, because most of the time parents will confuse conflict and bullying. Mm-hmm. And conflict is great, man. Loudon and I have had a ton of conflict. The problem, that's how you make things better in business. You have conflict with people. And it can be heated conflict. The problem is unresolved conflict is the problem. And that's what you're probably talking about. And someone got their feelings hurt. Someone lost the argument. There's nothing wrong with conflict. And that's another big discussion on building one's stress response system properly. And that's something we've, decimated in young people. But 4 things that make something bullying. Number 1, it has to be habitual. Has to happen over and over again. Let me back up. I'd say number 1 is the signature of bullying. It's fear, it's intimidation. Number 1 thing I ask a parent, is your kid afraid to go to school? Do they not want to be there? And some people are going to disagree with this, but that's okay.
Or even maybe not necessarily afraid to go to school, but feeling anxious when they're in the presence of someone else. Right.
But I just usually start with are they afraid to go to school?
Yeah.
But no, you're right. It might be afraid to go to the bus stop.
Sure.
Walk down a certain hallway because they have to see a kid. But it's fear. It's intimidation. That's the signature of bullying. It's not 2 kids not getting along, 1 student getting upset, 1 young person getting upset. It's fear, right? That's the real danger here. So is there an element of fear and intimidation? Does it happen over and over again? Right? That's very important. That's the programming of the young person to believe something about themselves or their family or their condition, right? They're programmed like a computer. Now, that's a big discussion too, because the cyber world changes that a bit. But number 3, the person that gets targeted has to feel, it's a very important word, smaller or weaker. And what does that mean? It means anything. Right? And that's one, we're just good at our age of picking up the big things, race, gender, poverty. But what I've learned after all these years is it could be anything. It's that girl, that young woman that's prettier than everyone else. That's a tough thing for a young lady when she becomes that girl, and she's got to wear that label through middle school and high school. That's a tough thing. Most people won't ever know how that feels, right? And then, of course, the last part in that, it happens on purpose. It's an intentional act. And this one, parents and teachers really need to grasp, because I give this one to teachers. I say, teachers, this one's almost exclusively for you, right? Because you ever do something hurtful to someone because you were having a bad day? Yeah, of course you have. And we just label things bullying. When a kid, it looks intentional because they did it intentionally. But there's a pretty good chance that they're having a really crummy day. Their parents are going through a divorce. Their dog died. I don't know what the issue is, but they made a mistake. And I'll kind of land on this. I've got this new thing that I almost think adults should be prosecuted. You can clip that one. When we crucify a kid, online in front of other adults for a behavior that they did in school. I think it should be illegal. You want to block something on social media, Elon Musk or whoever, Zuckerberg or whatever, that's what you should block. Because you know what, man? I did a lot of hurtful things when I was a kid because life was just crappy, and I was just having to fight with my parents or my sister, and I took it out on someone else. Now, I would call that bullying behavior, but it doesn't mean the kid bullied a single person. It means, he's operating on his feelings, because that's what kids operate on, their feelings. Right? So I just think it's very important at the beginning of this whole thing, because that's how Sweethearts and Heroes started. It was asked to do in 2009, I think,
Kind
a
of like
presentation on bullying.
an anti-bullying
That's
campaign.
right. And so we've always kind of kept that theme, because that's been around for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Right? People mistreating people. And it's going to continue to be around. And you're not going to eradicate it.
Yeah, and it seems that's where it starts, and that's what we think of. We're trying to end bullying like this, but really it seems as if we're trying to unify the the community of within the school, so it's less likely they would bully. We're strengthening their internal relationships, different groups, different cliques. I know that person. We have something in common. I'm not going to bully them. They're all cool now. They're chill now. Like, do you know what I'm saying, kind of? Oh, yeah. Like, so it's not like bullying bad, you're in trouble now. It's like he is less likely to bully someone else because we're all cool. We're all friends with each other. And even if we don't have a ton in common, we still treat each other with dignity, because that's what we've trained ourselves to do through other practices like circle and different stuff like that. Yeah. So it's really kind of cool. And I think it's way more, and the students say this. I'm just saying what the students say when I interviewed them. They say that these are the skills that are helping them in life with, like, job or applying for colleges or all these things, or just, kind of building who they are as a person, as a character. They didn't know how to do that before. So it just transcends bullying. Bullying is kind of, I feel like, the foot in the door, but then, like, it's just unifying the whole entire school beyond that. And it just seems like that is actually stopping bullying, so.
Well, I think it's one thing for you guys to bring this message and this presentation to schools. A whole nother thing to incorporate your Train the Trainer program, if you will, for lack of a better term, where now you guys are talking about some serious residual effect here, where when you leave, whether you come back to that school or not, when you leave, you've planted a seed that hopefully is really going to sprout. And when you're training the trainers, that's next level.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but here's the cool thing about our Train the Trainer. You say that and people are listening, you think about us training adults to train students in this work. And I know people are going to say, well, what kind of work? What do you train them in? Big, long, 10-year discussion. We have a full suite of classes in schools. But our true Train the Trainer, we are training students. We have a program called STEP, S-T-E-P, the Student Teacher Empathy Program. And we actually train high school students. We don't train adults. I mean, we do train adults, and we have a lot of professional development. But our real work, and this is where we will sweep America, this is our goal, is we train high school students. We had 7 schools this year that the high schoolers learned the message of Sweethearts and Heroes at the K2 and the 3-5 level. And now we have high school students presenting this to the elementary schools, just like we did for a decade.
Yeah.
And that's
massive.
where we exponentially change the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because not only are you multiplying the boots on the ground, in terms of you have all these people who know the lesson, who can convey it, but also the way that these younger students see these high school students who are presenting, it's so much more impactful than seeing Tom and Rick.
Right.
Not to take anything away from the Tom and the Rick show.
Oh, that's the king.
King Tom.
But it's so insane. Even when we were building these classes, we incorporated a toolbox into these lessons, some things that give these high school students some tricks of the trade to present. And one of them was give them some time, remind them, hey, I'm almost done here. Hey, I'm talking. Hey, we accounted for the loss of attention. I have seen so many STEP presentations where high schoolers are presenting. There is no loss of attention at all, because because the students just are looking up at these high school students like they're
Sure.
celebrities of some
Oh,
sort.
yeah.
So it's just so bizarre to see. And of course, they're new presenters. It's not even as polished. So it's not the element. Oh, they just have the presentation down. It's not the element.
Sure.
It is this. What do you call it? It's what is that?
Well, what he's talking about, and we kind of stumbled on this. You know, we would do these program, our Brave program, where we go into school for 6 weeks, and we take a group of older students, you know, mostly the gatekeepers, influencers, and not just the high flyers, the ones that have some influence in the hallways. And we take those, whether they're 8th graders or 11th and 12th graders, and we take those students, we train them for a full day, and then we come back once a week, and we invented something called a bully drill, like a fire drill.
Yeah.
Right?
I've seen
Yeah,
this.
you've seen
Yeah,
it. So,
they're fun.
but it's about age mixed play, and if there's one thing I can talk about, it's the science of play. I've just spent a decade learning about it, reading, devouring everything I can get on it, and what he's talking about.
I've seen you on other podcasts talking about
Yeah,
this.
so what we kind of stumbled on was I play old Mr. Incredible, and I tear my shirt off, and every kid loves me. And when I walk the hallways, like, Mr. Incredible, Mr. Incredible, I can come back the next year, and the kid's like, Mr. Incredible? Like, they'll just know. But so that's what kind of built my ego around, you know, King Tom and stuff. But anyway, but let me make this point because it's beautiful. So, because it's happened to me, this is where my head goes, psh, psh, and pops, right?
Yeah.
So it happened to me a couple times where I go train these older students, these older mammals. And I'm like, all right, now we're going to go down to the 2nd grade classroom and do bully drills. Now, if I see those 2nd graders in the hallway, they're like, yeah, Mr. Incredible, Mr. Incredible. And, but I bring these high school, middle school students down. The little kids don't even look at me. They look at the high school and the middle schoolers, and they're like, and all they want to do is connect with them, because when you look at, you know, how mammals truly learn, baby bear tries to play with mama bear. She entertains it for a few minutes, and then she's like, poof, I got mama bear stuff to do.
Yeah.
Baby bear then goes down to the river, watches the teenage bears.
Sure.
This is so deeply rooted in our brainstem.
100%.
And every mammal has a play cycle. Rats start at 4 weeks, they end at 14 weeks, but humans have the longest play cycles of all the mammals. And we are just the most neotenous creatures on planet Earth. We retain those juvenile tendencies the longest. I mean, I talk to your wife, she'd tell me you still act like a little kid most of the time. And but the point is, what Loudon gets to see, that I have been watching for over a decade, is that he gets to see through a lens these high school students, these older mammals, automatically teaching. The worst thing compulsory education ever did was segregate kids by age. Hands down the worst thing, because that's how mammals learn. And that's why I like these little Vermont schools, right? Because they still integrate so many of the kids on the playground. Yesterday on the playground, they had their 6th graders out there with the 1st and 2nd graders. If you take this science is incredible. If you take an entire elementary, Beatrice Whiting, some other folks did the science on this. If you release an entire elementary school into a gym, a playground, half of those kids will pair up with kids 2 years older than themselves, the little kids. And a quarter of them will pair up with kids within 4 years older. You're thinking right now about your daughter, and how old is she?
10.
Right. She loves being around 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
She loves it because
Yeah.
she's programmed to love it.
Yeah. Big sister mentality.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the one of the roots of our work. And he gets to watch it through a lens now and say, wow.
Yeah.
Because because look, what happens subconsciously with a kid in a classroom? They're listening to material from a teacher, and even if it's a great teacher and they love the teacher, and
It's still regurgitated.
yeah, but they just their attention is so fractured today. It's still like at some point you gloss over, and now subconsciously you're saying adults are kind of boring, where kids aren't boring.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful stuff.
I'm guessing both of you. I already know about Tom, but Loudon. I'm guessing you're similar to Tom in that when you have left some schools and seen what you've seen through your lens, that by the time you've made it out to your car and you're putting it in gear, you're so consumed with what you've just witnessed and experienced that you don't even remember the drive.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. And a lot of the times too, like while I'm filming this stuff or asking these questions, I in my head already know where that thing's going. But the students totally like
Yeah.
just remind me, hey, no, this is, and I think that I don't know what the name for that is, but eventually, yes, to kind of what you're saying is like I think I'm starting this day, I know exactly how it's going to go, and I'm essentially blindsided throughout the day with stuff I hadn't even thought of. And then yeah, it does consume my ride home because it's like this Tom will call, hey, how'd it go? You wouldn't believe the stuff we got. I didn't even know that was even a component of what they're dealing with. So it's just interesting. There's always surprise, it feels like, with something new that arises, and yeah, it definitely makes me think a lot about it for sure.
What he's talking about, I told him I was not going to talk about this. He's like, you should talk about that today. But what he's talking about is something called wonder. And I could go on a crazy, sick, cosmological diatribe about wonder right now and the wonder beam that we all ride. And what he's seeing is what Feynman, the physicist, they called him the great explainer. And he was brilliant, Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize winner. And, what he talked about was fluid intelligence. You have crystallized intelligence, you learn things your whole life. But young people have this thing called fluid intelligence. And it's what Einstein said, right? That imagination and creativity is more important than knowledge. We just wrote an article and we read about this and we quoted this, but this guy turns to Einstein, true story, turns to Einstein and says, hey, what's your phone number? And Einstein hands him a phone book. And the guy's like, dude, you're Einstein. What's your phone number? He's like, it's in a book. Why do I have to know it? And so what Loudon is seeing through a lens, he's seeing fluid intelligence working. And we're annihilating that in young people. We put them in front of a phone, which I'm not anti-phone for kids. There's a lot to say about it, a lot of challenges. But largely one of the things they're doing, though, is they're using someone else's intelligence, their fluid intelligence, their creativity, their imagination, and
to carbon copy it.
Yeah, and it does spark new things, and it's going to take us into a brand new realm. So we can't dismiss this. You've become smarter, better, faster by looking at content. But when the kid is in that for 7 to 9 hours a day and they're not bored anymore, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Because is the boredom, is that what kind of stimulates the wonder in a sense? The essence of boredom?
I would say that boredom is the second most suppressed emotion in humans. We have an unbelievable human that works with us. Kid saw us present in middle school. He's a man now, and I think he's about Loudon's age, and he has a degree in industrial psychology. His name is Pat Fish. He wrote a wonderful book of poetry called Boredom School. Because school is...
I see that.
Boring. And I don't say that to diss school. I believe in education. But we've annihilated boredom in young people. And a lot of imagination and creativity comes out of boredom. You're bored. You go outside. You figure something out. You go to your room and you figure something cool out that's fun.
This is what Pat Fish wrote?
Boredom School, yeah. It's great, man. And the great thing about Pat in that book, it makes me smile, is a teacher head faked him. His dad was a superintendent, a principal of the year in New York State. Mom was a 30-year educator. He wasn't crazy about school. Very intelligent. Probably got himself in a little trouble being as smart as he was. But a teacher, but Pat loved rap music. He's a sick, you have to get him on here. He can just freestyle. I try and make him do it in front of kids. It's great. He'll ask you a few questions and he'll just start breaking it into a freestyle. And but a teacher head faked him in middle school or early high school and said, hey, Patrick, we're doing a poetry unit. maybe you can bring some of that Lil Wayne to the poetry unit. And he was like, what? I can bring rap music to the poetry unit? And so ever since, he's been writing poetry, and he's got a sick book called Boredom School. It's about a new kid to a school. It's a sequential set of poems. And it's hard to be a new kid to a school.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the things. That's a kid that can easily become targeted.
Yes.
And sometimes that makes some young people feel smaller or weaker on the inside. How many times if you look at social penetration theory, it's a really, really interesting how we create relationships. You know, you always start out very reserved in orientation first. Like, you know the person that just jumps in and you're like, who's this weirdo? So most of us, we take it easy when we get into a new environment. We don't just jump in and say, look at how awesome I am. So it's hard to be a new kid, especially when you get to those middle levels, that middle school level, high school level. So Pat wrote a wonderful book called Boredom School. Right now on social media, he's on day 170 or 180 or something like that. She's giving me the sign here. I can't read, but
400 and something?
No. 147, but he's doing a poem a day. He brings a boredom school to school, and he finds a young person to read a poem. And he gets to let them pick anyone that they want that means something to them. So
I can't help but, as you're saying this, I'm Sherilyn and Lily were just on a road trip, and a lot of it was Lily spent, on a tablet and watching things during the road trip. I'm trying to explain to her, just speaking about boredom, that when I was her age, we didn't have tablets, we didn't have cell phones, we just had to look out the window and imagine things. Yeah. What am I going to do when we get there? What am I going to do when I get home? I'm imagining myself climbing that tree or walking up that field or whatever, or riding my bicycle somewhere. I mean, it's like, wow, how did I freaking survive?
Yeah.
I think of the song Counting Blue Cars, but it's like, my God, man, it's like, I'm trying to explain to her, you're lucky that you can have that distraction, but Mom also makes her shut it off.
Yeah, that's cool.
For a while. Okay, it's been long enough. It's time to unplug for a little while.
Yeah.
This is a giant discussion, bro.
Yeah,
that's a discussion, because now we've got to snap back.
Yeah, because it's almost like looking out the window is like very minuscule, but you never know what comes out. Because didn't Einstein come up with the theory of relativity by looking out of like a train window and seeing like poles or something pass? I could have swore I heard something about like he was on a train seeing the poles pass, and it's just a very small little moment, and had he have a tablet in his hands and he wasn't present, right? You never know what. So it's kind of interesting because
we just drove through not long ago through Brooklyn, and we're getting off the highway. We're coming into the city, and I'm just getting ready to say to Lily, tablet off.
Yeah.
And Sherilyn beat me to it. And I was like, that's awesome. Not off, but like power off.
Sick.
We're driving through Brooklyn. You are going to be looking around. Yeah. I want you to see everything. I want you to see the buildings. I want you to see some poverty. I want you to see some graffiti. I want to talk about graffiti. What is it? Why do people do that? All of these things, I want you to see it.
I'll give you something deeper to think about on this level. I can get very philosophical. I get way too philosophical about things. That's a beautiful thing. I had a friend of mine, I went to Hawaii with him, did 20 schools in Hawaii once. And we went there, and he was a film guy. And, world-class film guy. Actually won at Sundance. Really brilliant filmmaker. And I was like, oh, take this picture, take that picture. And at one point, he just put his hand on me, and he goes, Tom, some things aren't meant to be captured. He said, why don't you just enjoy it?
Oh, God.
And I'll never forget that lesson. But there's something different, though, about our kids and their neurology, that we have ushered in this sense of hyper reality. And there's a lot to be said about this, and this is very, very deep, that we have constructed a different reality for them in their brains. And they've attached to this, cosmological or this universal consciousness. And I don't want to get too weird on you because I can get very weird with this kind of stuff because most of my recreational reading is around this kind of stuff. But because we've propelled them into this world, this hyper real world, the real world isn't real to them. If a dinosaur was outside right now, you and I might be in awe. For them, they'd probably be disappointed because of the world that they live in. Because a Tyrannosaurus is supposed to act like it is on Jurassic Park. It's not supposed to run around the side of the building and hide. So
Yeah.
I appreciate what you say, but at some level it confuses me because this regular world is boring. And that's pretty scary, to be honest with you, for me, that reality is boring to them. And you want her to experience the graffiti. And I'm not trying to push back on you.
Yeah, I know.
But
I know
you
exactly
want them
what
to
you're saying.
experience that. Like, because your reality was tied to those things when you were a little boy from Vermont or wherever, and you went to the big city. And see, I had the reverse of that. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I remember moving and sitting in my classroom in 3rd or 4th grade looking at these kids and being like, I literally thought this and can remember this thought.
Sure.
These hayseeds had no idea what life is really like.
Yeah, right.
But when I saw my first cow,
Yeah.
when I got to pull a fish out of the stream, I was like, oh my God, what is this? So it's really interesting, man, the collision. And the scary part is, dude, when your generation and my generation are gone, we got one generation, how we started this podcast, who has seen a glimpse of it. What happens when that generation's gone?
Yeah.
Jeez. But you know who talked about this? This is fascinating. This is mind-blowing. I'll make this short. This is what Huxley talked about in Brave New World. I don't know if you ever read it. So in the future, it's this hype. He wrote this in the 30s, bro. Like, this is mind-blowing. Like, he must have had a time machine. Him and Orwell must have had some kind of time machine. I could go off on Fahrenheit. But think about this. In Brave New World, if you don't know the book, dude, you should read it or listen to it. It'll blow your freaking mind. In the future, they go to reservations to watch the natives because they live in this hyper-realized world where they live on soma, which is a drug. I think it's basically THC today. But they live on this stuff to deal with their anxiety every time, and you get paid, I think, in soma. But they desensitize themselves to death. They let little kids go in and crawl on people that are dying, and so it's like, death is a sense of awe. It's a sense of wonder. Like, what's next after that? But what happens though is they go to this reservation. They bring this guy John back into their world from the reservation. By the end of the book, John's living in this world, and he can't handle this hyper-realized world. And you know how the book ends? He hangs himself.
Wow.
Wow. Because he can't live in this hyper-realized world. Think about that.
Damn.
Yeah.
And that was written in the 30s?
30s, like 32 or something.
What was his story?
so
Was he just a writer?
Oh, no, Huxley. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
That's like
That's a big rabbit
giving me
hole.
freaking goosebumps, man.
Yeah. Goosebumps, dude. Goosebumps.
But inversely, I bet the hyper-realized people couldn't live in the natives world either, though. Dude.
They wanted to, though. It's like kids today. Like, they want to. They
shit.
want to feel that. But they're some of them are just disappointed with it, the real world. Can you imagine being disappointed with the real world and the senses? You were designed. You were built for your senses to interact with the real world.
Yeah.
And now, like, they're not. and now you putting on VR and other things like that.
Sure. Oh
man.
God.
Check out Brave New World.
Video games. Man, we could go down a couple of rabbit holes.
I know.
Here. Holy
The video
shit.
game one is another very, very
Jeez.
interesting discussion.
Man. To wrap this morning,
Yeah.
tell our listeners what to expect on Wednesdays going forward here.
Well,
we're going to change it up.
Yeah. You're not going to get to listen to Tom and his philosophy.
I would like to come to one of these schools too.
Oh,
and
dude, you should. It'll blow your mind.
I-
Our K2,
we have to do that.
our K2, our 3-5, the most important work that we do, hands down. Our middle high school level, you won't even know what hits you when you leave the auditorium. 30, 40-year educators have said for a decade, I've never seen anything like this. Most important work we do is the elementary work. I'd say the most important work we do now is training students to present this message.
Yeah, right.
This elementary message.
Sure.
Because, things like fire drills, stop, drop, and roll, you'd never teach it to a high school kid.
Yeah.
You teach those skills or that skill set to younger kids. So we train young kids in real actionable skills that they can use on the playground. And then we practice them. And that's really what has separated us from everyone else. Is
You role play it.
we role play. It's sociodramatic play is what it is. And that codes in the brain differently than and there's a lot to say about that. But what do you expect from this? Number one, I expect every time to give credit to these dealers that have brought us to your wonderful state.
Yeah.
Nothing more important there. Because it wouldn't happen without them.
Yeah.
With these little rural schools in Vermont. But number two, we hope to bring a different team member. We'll bring Pat Fish on.
Mm-hmm.
We'll bring the great Rick Yarish on, the great one, the world's H.O.P.E expert.
Will that be pay-per-view?
Pay-per-view. Jeez. You got to buy some popcorn for that one. Actually, I went to the movie theaters with him once. You won't believe what movie. I went to the movie theater. I spent more time with Rick than my wife. More anniversaries with him than my wife. That's a true story. 220 days on the year with him for 10 years almost. Went to the movie theaters with him once. He brought his service dog. It was a disaster. You know what movie we went and saw?
Oh,
I'll give you $100 if you can tell me.
Harry Potter.
Nope.
Saving Private Ryan.
No.
I
What? That wasn't in the theaters.
Titanic.
Oh, God.
I have no idea.
3D Titanic.
Dude, it was crazy. I don't really go to the movies. I'm not a movie watcher. It.
Oh, jeez.
He looks like he came out of It. Now, I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. Rick has no PTSD, greatest sense of humor ever. But can you imagine coming into the movie late? And Rick is so funny because he's on his phone because he doesn't want to sit near anyone because he's got his dog there.
Yeah.
And he's so funny to watch because his hands are melted together.
Yeah.
But he's got a little pincher. He's not still listening, is he?
I think he is.
Oh, God.
We'll find out.
Anyway, he's got, on one hand, he's got a little pincher. I've never said that before. He's going to be so upset with me. But he'll grab one kernel at a time.
Okay.
But when the lights go off, it's like popcorn's flying. It's great. But can you imagine coming in late and you walk there and you walk over and you sit down and you don't realize who you sit next to and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, and you're in It. Like, it's like, oh, man. Anyway.
Only these guys can do this. I mean, I could never take a swing at Rick.
Oh,
like
dude,
this.
and that's not true, dude.
They have chemistry.
Listen, man.
We're being asked, will you guys make it to Berry City Elementary and Middle School?
I sure hope we will. We just re-upped with our friends, the Chevy Group, so they're going to do another year with us. And I would love for them just to send me a note because what we did yesterday, Benson brought 3 elementaries together.
Benson Chevrolet.
Yeah, like we were in Ludlow,
Yeah.
where we were, dude, this was crazy. We were in Ludlow in like 2017 or 2018.
Yeah, they brought a couple of schools in.
Yeah, but we were there in 2017 or 2018 just for Ludlow. And but this time we went back to the elementary, and they brought 2 other schools there. So what we're doing with the Chevy Group, which is kind of new, is we're hitting elementaries, and we're going to bring more elementary schools together under one roof. so we can just hit more schools. So I would ask this person, this individual, just to send us, go to sweetheartsandheroes.com.
And direct that to.
Yeah, get it to us, and I'll make sure we put them on the list. Because here's one of the craziest things, though. I'll leave it unmentioned, but we were in another Vermont school not too far from here, one of the best schools ever. And I know the principal, and I said, dude, you get 2 days with this dealership. Call your middle school, your high school. They said, no thanks. Completely paid for by the dealership. So we just went to the elementary. So I'd love to think we're going to go to that school, but if the administration doesn't want us, and I guarantee you we'll be back at that middle and high school that said no thanks next year, because when you hear what we've never advertised one day, because when we go to an area and one person sees it, they're like the Ludlow police chief was there yesterday. He's brand new. His mind was blown. A former Marine police chief.
Yeah.
There's an organization there that a substance abuse organization. The lady was like, what just happened? So just tell him to send a note to us, and I'll make sure I ask the dealer if that could be one of the schools next year we pull together.
Orange Center School, just up the road here. I mean, Washington Village School.
Yeah.
I mean, you've Newberry was just not a couple of weeks ago, I think, right?
Yeah. If you go to our website at the bottom, there's a map. Unfortunately, I don't think I started it until 2015.
Yep.
And you can see probably 500 schools that we've been in on that map.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But just to go back to what we were saying here, we hope to have a different team member, give you a different angle, different glimpse. Won't be this long.
Yeah.
We'll have ones where maybe we can come back down here. Most of them will be remote.
Yeah.
But we'll get Rick on here. And really what
Leon?
I'm most excited about,
That'd be cool.
Leon. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. A guy that spent time like you in the press for 25 years in Vermont. It's the other thing, too, about Vermont. You know, we could legislatively really make an impact. And I've reached out to several legislators, and this is not a diss. I just saw Senator, I always want to call him Congressman, Senator Welch, because I know him. I did a face-off with him once.
You did?
Yeah, in front of a restaurant. I got a picture of it. But I just saw him in the airport last week, and we were going to Miami to do a film shoot, and I sat down. I got a chance to talk to him about this issue, and this isn't anything that I would criticize him on, but when I gave him some of the stats on, you know, especially the destructive decisions young people are making in America today, he was just like, and again, this isn't to criticize, but I'm just thinking, you know, there's nothing more important than our young people in the world today. You can always judge a society by how it treats its young people. I mean, for all of human history. And for him to not know that, or for someone on his team not to bring this to his attention.
Yeah.
2 kids yesterday in Virginia, or this week in Virginia. I mean, it's sweeping the country.
Sure.
And it's not just, Rick and I are going to Des Moines, Iowa in May to present to linemen. You know what I know you want to wrap this up, but the general suicide rate in America is anywhere between 10 and 14 per 100,000. We've been to Camp Pendleton the last 2 years. Marines are at 34.9 per 100,000. 34.9 per 100,000. Our children are reaching the general suicide rate, which it doesn't make any sense. It's this. It's pretty much.
When I was a kid, if somebody took their life late teens, 20s, that was considered extremely young.
Oh, yeah. And you probably only heard about it one time your whole life.
Yeah.
There's not a kid today that doesn't know someone that's attempted. There's between 500,000 and 1 million attempts in children.
When I was 10, I wouldn't even know how to take my life. I mean, that's crazy.
I've been talking to Sam Toish in Indiana right now, and his 9-year-old took his own life. And it's very public. It's getting some press legislatively. But linemen, Rick and I are going to talk to some linemen. I was going to turn it down last year, but when I looked at the data, electrical contractors are somewhere between 52 to 68 per 100,000. And that means the linemen that work in the state of Vermont. So this is not an issue that's just about young people.
Wow.
We have a true epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, of hopelessness and despair in this country. And we're not talking about it. So I would just say that legislatively it would be great. Maybe we could even get, your local rep on here. But we really want to I want to get a few parents on here that have seen our work, that have felt our work. My number one compliment is when a parent calls me. I have hundreds of these emails, hundreds. My kid and I never talk. They came home. They wouldn't stop talking about what happened today. Those stories need to be told.
Mm-hmm. We should ask a couple of things. Number one, thank a Chevy dealer for backing you guys up. Mm-hmm. No matter who they are, reach out to them and post on their social media, thank you for supporting the mission behind Sweethearts and Heroes. Also, we should say, take this episode and send it to someone who can use it productively, whether it's at a school, whether it's in the legislature. Share this episode. And every Wednesday, I would love to see you guys garner some more attention under the Golden Dome.
Yeah.
It'd be great. I'd love to get involved with that in some way, either on the air or off the air. It doesn't matter. But there's a lot of you understand, and I've said to you before, Tom, man, you guys have done some great things, and you're like, dude, we have so much more work in front of us. This is your legacy. This really is. This is who you are, and you've teamed up with people who share that passion with you, and have just embraced that mission. This guy sitting right next to you is one of several.
Yeah. I just said it back. You saw my face get a little. I don't want this to be my legacy.
Really?
Me. I don't want my name to be. At the end of the day, I want the word Sweethearts and Heroes, because that's the solution. That's a whole episode in itself. What Sweethearts and Heroes are. Like, what a weird word. Like,
what is that? Let's close out with what.
Why don't you tell them?
What is
story? You got it.
Well, what is Sweethearts and Heroes? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I for years people have said, you got to change the name. You got to change the name. It doesn't make sense. I was just in the school last week. They're like, this lady's like, you're from the Hugs or Hearts and Heroes people, and I was like, no, Sweethearts and Heroes. And so when I got asked to do that initial bullying, this is part of the origin story. And once I tell people this, they're like, oh, you can't change the name. I'm like, I know. But I got asked to do this thing on bullying. I was never a bully, never really bullied. I was just on the outside. I was a bystander.
Yeah.
And, and that's what the message has been about from day one, empowering young people to be the change within their peer network. And that didn't come initially. What came initially was I was a horrible student.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to have a dictionary in college to learn rudimentary, simple things.
Okay.
Still have it. Every time I look a word up, I'd put a check mark next to it. When it got 3 or 4 or 5 check marks next to it, I'm like, man, I really am not that smart. But anyway, my buddy called me, said, can you do something on bullying? I was already doing some stuff on leadership, motivation kind of stuff. Opened the dictionary, the word bully, word origin, sweetheart.
Interesting.
I know. And I was like, what is this? And I'm always trying to look at things from a different angle. I like to shock people sometimes. Like, that's how we start this whole thing.
Yeah.
I was going to play. I competed professionally in mixed martial arts a little bit, and I was going to be in front of 900 savages. And when I say savages, I mean savages.
Yeah.
Middle schoolers.
Oh.
Nobody harder to present in front of. High schoolers will tune you out. Little kids, you can do whatever you want. They'll love it. Middle schoolers, you ain't got them hooked, they'll ruin you. So I would play a minute of me competing in a cage, run out on stage, tell them how much I hate fighting. They're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But that was my hook. Got them interested. Trusted messenger kind of thing. Scare them. So if they fool around, I'm going to
Smash them.
Right.
Smash them. No.
Of course.
No. But just the kids are like, whoa, we can watch this kind of stuff in school. And this is before they all had cell phones in school. And anyway, but then I was going to say the only reason I could get into that cage was because of your gym teacher. Because I wrestled with him in college. He was bigger than me, stronger than me, shoved me around the room. He bullied me because that's what a 16th century bully did. The word origin, you bullied someone to make them better, stronger, faster, smarter. But what the person was really giving you was hope.
Yeah.
When you needed it, when you didn't think you could do something, they saw your potential and they pushed you. And, about 100 years ago, later, the word was literally perverted. Pimps would bully Johns for their sweethearts or their girls. And that's where we get the modern definition, harasser of the week. But the original origin of the word was sweetheart. And so what we did from day one was understood that young people all carry hope. Rick got hope from a 5-year-old little girl. Saved his life probably. Gave it to him. Beautiful story. And what we realized was all the kids in that auditorium are the solution because they carry hope through the hallways, but they have to make the choice to give that hope. So when you tell someone about a sweetheart, like, oh, no, you can't change it. So that's why it's Sweethearts and Heroes.
It's incredible. Hopefully, we're going to get some more schools added to the list here.
Yeah.
I am so excited about our partnership together, taking what you've already done and just bringing it to the aired out audience and helping to spread the greatness that you guys are doing.
Well, I'm thankful for you, man. And someday we're going to have a conversation on air about one of the most beautiful things I ever saw. And I won't mention it.
Okay.
But out back in this parking lot the last time I came to the studio.
Wow.
And we're going to have a conversation. And that's honestly, JD, it's the only reason I'm here. And I know you're even struggling a little bit, but the reason that I'm here today is because of what I saw when I pulled in last time I was here with you in the parking lot.
Wow.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, man. I'm ready.
All right.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you
so
very
much. I don't know who's coming in next Wednesday. I can't remember, but I'm looking forward to whoever it is, whether it's Leon or whoever. I'm just so excited. Sweethearts and Heroes. You guys you're crushing it, man. You're crushing it.
One student at a time.
Doing an outstanding job. Love you both, and I look forward to next Wednesday already. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.